Hello, everyone, and welcome to Stronger Live. This is our August, it's late August topic on self promotion, savviness. And I'm very happy to see you all. We always record these, so if you're watching it at a different time, I hope you've had a good day or you're planning for a good day. Today, I'm coming to you from Bloomington, Indiana, where my base is, where the university is, where I teach, but I'm wearing the t-shirt of a different university. Johnson and Wales is in Providence, Rhode Island. And today is my son's last first day. So I thought I would put this on to channel good luck and best wishes to our senior. But that was kind of, I wanted to be a good supportive mom. I started this live, Stronger Live, to always align and tether with topics that we put in the Stronger newsletter. You'll get a chance to have a link to the newsletter if you haven't seen it yet. But we tackle topics every month that help you increase and improve your brand and your visibility. Many times it's related to communication, response to difficult situations, tackle things that are sticky, coach yourself through difficult situations. And this month, we tackle or approach self promotion savviness. I'll go through the 5 different topics that we looked at and then introduce our guest. And our guest is coming in from a much warmer and westerner state than me. I'll let him tell you. But as we're inviting everyone to join us, I want to know where you're coming in from. I want to know where Olu is from. I think I know, but I can't remember. But if you're coming in, let us know your geographical location. It's always fun. This is a very global audience, and it's wonderful to see all of you be engaged. Good evening, or good morning, or good afternoon to many. So in the newsletter of Stronger this month, we said that there's 5 strategies that don't involve you talking to another person and introducing yourself, but they involve more behind the scenes work. The very first one would be to have, like I'm doing for AJ, although I'll throw him under the bus a little and say, tell me a little bit about you. But if you want to have, hey, Steve, my brother-in-law is here as well from Omaha. If you want to have Anastasia Calispera, if you want to have a way for someone to give you their credibility and their visibility in a meeting or even in a session like this, or even in an introduction of an email, have them give you a brief introduction and how what you do relates to the project. We call that rock star introductions, and they really help if you are a junior member of a team or a new member in a company. Really make sure that you ask for these introductions and you give enough information to the person bringing you in. Also, you want to make sure you ask for a senior member of the team to introduce you, and so therefore everyone listens. Another way to do that electronically is to ask for recommendations, but be mindful that you ask for people that really know the level and detail and integrity of the work that you do, so that you don't have generalist comments that seem like someone on an AI machine wrote them. The other topics that we share have been to put your portfolio, some of the work that you've done, make it more visible online, to make sure that you share what your outside hobbies and your interests are in posts, especially on LinkedIn, to show that there's a little bit more than one layer of a professional layer for you. We talk a little bit about keeping track of your accomplishments or your wins in what Peggy Klaus, the author of Toot Your Horn Without Breaking It, writes is a brag journal. And that's just so you remember. Finally, the final point of the promotion of yourself was to lift others as well. I make a concerted effort, usually at the end of the week, to make a post that promotes other people's work and their books and share information on another course that I'm watching or a book that I have read. So you may want to take those 5 suggestions and make them your own. But before I go any further and to ask for him to elaborate, I want to introduce to you AJ Eckstein, if we want to bring him on board and give him a big virtual round of applause. Thanks for joining us, AJ. You're in Arizona, correct?
Austin, Texas, actually.
Austin,
So
Texas. Ah,
still as hot as Arizona in the summer. And I
darn
saw
it.
someone
Close.
close. Someone was from Dallas, Texas, but currently in Austin. And I always joke that depends on the day of the week. I've been living out of my suitcase and traveling to way too many conferences and work meetings, but it has been an absolute blast. And it's so great to see you again. I think last
Yes.
time we spoke was when we met in person
Yes.
at the New York Empire State Building LinkedIn office for our LinkedIn
Absolutely.
instructor meetup.
Yes. So talking about networking, AJ and I had never met before. We both flew in 2 years ago in the fall when the LinkedIn learning community had a group of instructors, or a way to connect instructors with one another in sort of a meeting or a summit. And AJ stood out to me because you were at the time had just recorded a nano course, if I remember, or two, and you were really, really intentional, but not distracted in trying to get to know and meet everyone and connect with everyone. And since then, I have seen your work just explode. And when we were talking about this topic and this specific approach, I thought, I know right away, before I knew what I would write in the newsletter about self-promotion, I knew that I wanted to have you because you've also gone through a big career change. You now have a startup. It's an amazing trajectory that you've created so far, and I want to be sure that we tap into that as it relates to self-promotion. I'm already seeing questions that we're getting and where people are coming from. But before I look at those, I want to ask you, AJ, tell me a little bit about you.
Absolutely. Well, again, thank you so much for having me on the show, Tatiana. So
My
I
pleasure.
recently left my corporate 9 to 5 consulting job just because I felt like there was something that was just a burning desire inside of me to go start something, to go build something. I got very antsy in corporate to go and just go off to the races. So I have a startup called Creator Match, where at the core we match brands with LinkedIn creators, and we're all in on this influencer economy on LinkedIn. So we have an agency. We run basically all of the influencer marketing for some of the biggest brands in the world that you've definitely heard of. And on the other side, we're building tools to power this economy. So we have a new Chrome extension that we're coming out with that's currently in beta for LinkedIn creators and brands. And then we also have an entire software platform to track and manage these campaigns at scale.
I remember your quote, or maybe it was a vote where you said, do you consider in interaction by people like myself or yourself on the LinkedIn platform to be influencers or creators? There's quite for when I think influencers, I think Kim Kardashian talking and promoting her makeup, but in a way, there's ways to influence and I would say inform about topics that are relevant to the world of work that can happen on the LinkedIn platform. But you've had a lot of persuading to do, am I right?
Persuading on the which side, the creator side or the brand side?
The brand side.
So it's interesting. Not even a lot, a majority of my day is just on calls with both brands and creators, educating them on this opportunity. I think what's interesting is that LinkedIn's not new, right? It's been around for 21 years. The platform is not revolutionary. It's been around since the dawn of time. But there is a new focus on trying to do something different in a marketing strategy. I mean, a lot of these brands, we're not teaching them on influencer marketing in general, but influencer marketing specifically on LinkedIn. So educating the brands on how to go about it, because LinkedIn is very different than other platforms. How you
sure.
creators, how you look at what KPIs, how you look at a CPM on LinkedIn versus on a TikTok or Instagram. And then also just the technology that you need to scale these programs. A lot of the brands today, since the infrastructure is not built and not in place, and LinkedIn doesn't really give you any ability to run and manage these campaigns unless you're running paid ads, it's through email screenshots and spreadsheets, where obviously that is not the recipe to scale a program with a public company that wants to spend $100,000 in influencer marketing. So that's kind of one side of my day. The other side is educating the creators and reaching out to creators and saying, hey, I have a brand deal with XYZ brand. They want to sponsor you. And then holding their hand, because a lot of times we're giving them their first paycheck ever on LinkedIn. And it's not just micro creators. I mean, we're talking with creators, 500,000 followers, millions of impressions per post, who have never done a brand deal, who don't know what a media kit is. So really educating both sides to, again, match the two together, hence the name Creator Match.
That's amazing. So you spend a lot of time on the platform, which is the other reason you're the right person to be here. In the meantime, we have our friend Hussein from Iran joining us, a Greek friend of mine from San Francisco, Filipos. And speaking of networking, Salim is in Texas as well. So you may want to connect with him as well as we get started today. I talked in the newsletter in Stronger about making sure you get rock star introductions from others. Make sure that you disclose a little bit about you in what you post. You have a portfolio, that you ask for recommendations, that you uplift others. I am sure that you have done all of this and more. What's missing from that list, AJ, and what is you would say would be very useful to our audience today or our audience watching our session?
So I think these are 5 excellent strategies in personal branding and networking. I think the biggest myth that a lot of people get confused about networking is they think that they only need to network to land a job. Like, I'm going to network with Tatiana because
Yeah.
she works at XYZ company. I want to work there. I'm going to
Yep.
network when I need something. But I think the
Yep.
biggest unlock that I've ever learned in my career is you network when you do not need anything. Because when I reach out to you and you're like, how could I help? It's like, I don't need anything. I'm not asking for anything. I just want to learn to see how we can help each other. I think that's a huge thing. If you think about it in a different way, networking becomes effortless. And the second piece is, I think of networking as connecting people. And my goal, and someone asked me in another podcast last week what my superpower is. And I think my true superpower is just connecting people. And I love to be that person. And even our whole business of Creator Match is connecting brands with creators. So it makes a ton of sense. But just connecting, whether it's a startup founder to an investor, a friend who's looking to date somebody, and I know the right person for dating, right? It could be someone who's searching for a job and a recruiter, right? So the bigger the network you have, the more matchmaking you can play in any field within your personal, professional career. And it just becomes so much fun. And I love just connecting people to opportunities. So if you think about it that way, you can really start connecting people. And maybe Tatiana says, hey, Jay, do you know somebody who's an expert at XYZ topic for my next live event? Of course, I have the right person. It gives me value. It gives me excitement. It fills my cup. It gives you value. It gives the other person value, all for free. And we're helping each other in a networking fashion.
And we know I have a lot of students, MBA students, undergrads that sort of lace up their bootstraps and go into networking, and they hate it because there's this need to project and promote themselves, and there's always a job. And if they would do it at all times and not see it as a sleazy sort of sell yourself thing, it would be so much easier. And the bigger the network, I have found that when I ask for something, things just pop up like this and happen. But I make sure, like you, that I do this for others. It's a constant, ongoing flow versus sort of a stop start. And that's why we all should be building our networks and connecting with people that we may sometimes need.
It's very similar, going back to influencer creator marketing. The best and most high performing campaigns are the always on programs, right? Instead of like one off in anything rarely works. But if you are always networking, and I always make the example, you're at Starbucks and someone's wearing an Indiana University sweatshirt, right? And you're in Austin, Texas, chat with them. You never know where that conversation can go. And just be human. I think a lot of people forget that it's just a human conversation. You don't have to sell yourself. Here's my elevator pitch. Here's my 30-second pitch, whatever it is. And that's the best way to approach it. So I always think you're always networking and you're always trying to meet people, grow your network. You never know where one conversation can lead. And I've met some of the coolest, craziest people in the world in the most random fashions. If I didn't go up and chat with them, who knows what would have happened.
Yeah, exactly. Or crazy connections. Our friend Brian says networking is happening. It's good when you give value to others and it eventually comes around. And it's a pay it forward. You know, for me, I've had people give me open or connections to their network without asking for anything back. Or I do something good for someone and they say, how can I repay you? And I always will say, make sure to pay it forward and you help someone that needs that. You connecting, talking a little bit about striking up a conversation, and that's rapport building that also comes with experience or comes with the need to build that skill. But back to what we said initially, you shouldn't wait to look for a job in order to network. Goodness, I've said that 100 times. You asked about, or you talked a little bit about meeting the most random people and connecting and things working out long term. Do you have a story that kind of takes us there in the moment? That's a crazy networking story.
So I would say, so I recently spoke at a TED Talk, and my entire topic was about how to get lucky and how to create your own luck and build that corner of mentors and mentees. And it's really funny because I used to be a very introverted person. I think now I'm more of an extroverted introvert. But how I look at really anything is nobody's ever going to reach out to you, especially earlier in your career. No, nothing's going to come inbound to you. Like the CEO of Apple is not going to DM you and say, "Hey, Tatiana, I would love for you to intern at Apple." Right? You have to
Yeah.
go out and throw
Yeah.
your hat in the ring in any opportunity possible. So like the TED Talk, for whatever reason, a lot of people think that I got asked by TED to come speak at a TED Talk.
I read that post. You were knocking on doors, or you made it your goal. Like you tried so many times. You turned it in like 10 times?
20 times and got it rejected. I mean, 19 rejections and then got one exception.
Wow. You motivated me because I have a topic I want to propose. I'm afraid of the work that it involves, but yes, definitely you really made that clear. And you're right. People look at it and go, "Oh, that must be an easy invite." Not the case.
And people don't care about your rejections. We personally think about rejections a lot, but trust me, I don't go out and say I got rejected 20 times. I mean, it's a great story now, but people only care that I got accepted and then I got to speak at the TED Talk, right? So you have to throw your hat in the ring, and to be in a position to get lucky, you have to put yourself in a position to get lucky. So if you're trying to work at Apple, let's say, right, and you're sitting there doing nothing, nothing's going to happen. But if you go put yourself in the ecosystem of people who work at Apple and people who work in tech and chat with alumni and this and that, like that's how you get lucky and how opportunities come out of nowhere. And bonus points if you can create content and stay top of mind. So to answer your original question about one of my favorite examples is I remember there was this dream internship at the Walt Disney Company when I was studying at USC. And I was reading through the application, and the criteria to be eligible is you had to have a 3.5 GPA. And I tried very, very hard in school, but I think I was on the cusp of a 3.5 and I had a 3.4 at the time, or 3.3. So instead of self-rejecting, which I think a lot of people do, which is a mistake, and I've definitely been a culprit of self-rejecting myself over the years, I still applied. But instead of just applying, I went to one of their networking events on campus. I met the recruiter and I sold myself. And you have to sell yourself. You know, I think in this beautiful world, so many people will take the opportunities that should be yours because they put themselves out there, not because they are higher qualified, but they're just more visible, right? So it doesn't always come down to just your experience and how good you are, but how much you can sell yourself. So I did that exact thing, went in person and sold myself on why I'm perfect for this program. It was a leadership program on literally at Disneyland, in Disney housing in Anaheim. And they were able to overlook that small number with a decimal point, got to the interview process, crushed it, and landed that internship. And that was a stepping stone to get my consulting full-time offer, and then to just continue to progress in my career. So it's a great story.
But you bypassed, and I hear this thing with the GPA so many times because on paper, it's an easy way to put that on the no pile. But if they see you, you don't have your GPA on your badge. They're going to be attracted to you as an individual, as a personality, as an energy, and they'll listen and you sell yourself, and then they'll go look at your resume. And at some point, maybe if you're lucky, as you said, maybe they'll bypass that standard specifically. I hear this all the time, and you're right. We self-select out. I'm not qualified because I don't have this one thing that they're asking for. So I'm glad that seems like the start to your career trajectory. I'm looking to who's joining us today and wondering if we have self-promotion savviness suggestions only. Oh, by the way, I saw you just drinking. I don't want to forget, always in our lives, we send off one of these stronger tumblers so you can stay hydrated or caffeinated or whatever else you want to put in it. So make sure you do #stronger, and we'll do a drawing at the end of our time together too. Sorry, I got a little distracted. I've got a Post-it note here to remind myself, and it didn't happen. So we have our friends that are joining us or listening afterwards that have been in the workplace for a long time, maybe have been on the platform of LinkedIn for over 10 years or use other social media to build their brand. And then we have our freshmen today, a lot of students are starting college. My son has starting his senior year, or we have out in the workforce new and up and coming professionals. So everyone is at a different level. What recommendations would you have from a self promotion standpoint, or does any of that relate to the newer people coming in and the seasoned professionals? Does it matter?
I think it's more or less the same advice. The best time to start is yesterday, and the second best time is today in
Yeah,
anything. I recently made a
love that.
post. I ended up running 3 marathons and an ultra marathon last year. Don't ask me why. My friends convinced me, and Austin is a very fun, runner friendly city. And one of the biggest takeaways that I learned was not how hard the training was or running 26.2 miles, but it was just getting to the starting point and then taking your first step, putting the shoes on. So personal branding, you can think of it, oh, it's so scary. I have to make 10 posts a day and network and this and that. It's like, it's just getting started. So to answer your question about the students who are in this live right now, yes, it might be cringe to post on LinkedIn. And yes, your friends might make fun of you, but A,
Mhm,
they're not really your friends if they're going to make fun of you putting yourself
mhm.
out there. And B, I'm so happy that I started early, and I could have started even earlier, but I'm so happy that I started early because it put me ahead of everybody else. Again, not that I was a better person and more qualified, but since I was ahead and I can grow a following and become more visible, a lot of opportunities over the years have come to me versus me having to go out and get them. So if
Yeah.
you're a student and you want to have an easier process with the job search to start off with, put yourself out there, build your personal brand, make content, make sure your profile is updated, and things will be so much easier versus if you're a senior and you're about to graduate and now you're focusing on your personal brand. It's almost, I don't want to say it's too late, but it's
Yeah.
much more difficult and you're running an uphill
Yes.
battle than when it's early on.
I cannot agree more. Or if you've been in the work world for 25 years and you think, I don't know what to write, sadly, and LinkedIn has done a good job to help people say, I'd like to announce that I got this promotion. Anyone that comes onto the platform thinks this is all LinkedIn is, and it's not true. Because even if you have 25, 30 years of experience, then you have something to say that's valuable to everyone around you from your perspective and your work experience. And that way you build credibility. But if you're newer, you have your bright eyed viewpoint of you could do a day in the life. I wish that today there are 10 freshmen around the world that are listening to us and they would post once a week of what their life is like as an incoming student in 2024. Very different. And by the way, speaking of creators, I'm sure that there's brands that would be interested to teaming up with them because once they build their following, they have a very different viewpoint that brands and companies are looking for. So it takes work and it takes strategic thinking, but we don't take time to do it. We think it's just the platform that says, I would like to announce that I got this promotion or I have this job.
And I think anything good in this world takes effort, it takes work. And 99% of people won't do it, or maybe they start it but don't finish it. But it's up to you to start it, run it, and finish it in
Yeah.
anything, whether it's a marathon or whether it's personal branding or
Yeah.
posting. And I cannot stress enough, being top of mind sets yourself up for success. And again, if you want to be in a position to get lucky, it's not that you're luckier than the next person, but you're in the circle that you want to be to get speaking opportunities or be on a podcast or get invited to this live event. Like if I didn't show up and fly to New York to meet you, we probably would have never been doing this live event. And so many cool
Or,
things.
yeah, I would have known you from afar, but you and I would not have connected. I've been thinking of this opportunity and trying to think of where could we put it together. Our friend Sarah says, "Don't listen to others that say be quiet. You won't gain anything. Don't listen to people who aren't in the game." I have to say, even for me, I'm very active on LinkedIn. I have a certain group of people that are like, meh, all of that LinkedIn stuff. It's too braggadocious. And again, it's where the work world is today. Maybe you and I are speaking, we're both like-minded, but I wish that there was a way to persuade others to do a little more, or ones that are hesitant. As I think about this, I asked you about one thing you would add to doing, and you would say, get started if you don't. Self-promoting yourself specifically, do you, or when you started building your following on LinkedIn, would you reach out to people and ask to connect with them, ask to spend time with them if you could, or comment on something that they had posted? Did you take that strategy?
If you have more time, I always think it's good to warm up the person. I mean, going back to, networking is sales, right? And I don't want to say sales in the sense of that it's transactional, but sales in that if you warm up the quote unquote lead, there's a higher response rate to your outreach message. So
Yeah.
instead of flat out cold DMing you or cold emailing you, you probably won't respond. But if I start engaging with some of your content, I like it. I add a comment and actually tag you. You see me, you'll probably go to my profile, say, "Oh, who's this? I've never seen them before."
Yeah.
Don't make an ask. Do that over a small period of time, let's say a couple of days, a few weeks, and then you can make your ask down the road and you become a warmer lead. And the second thing on top of that is that there's, especially with AI and how easy it is to templatize, let's say on ChatGPT, write me an outreach message, Tatiana, let me send it, etc. The busier the person, the more care and time you have to put into that custom tailored message. I get so much outreach on a daily basis across way too many platforms, even just like email, Slack, LinkedIn, Twitter, whatever it is. I only respond and give time to someone who spent the time to write a really thoughtful message, knowing that it wasn't just a rapid fire outreach message, right? So not just, hey, like always, obviously customize the name. And don't just say, hey, I love your live event. Say, hey, I love your Stronger Live. Don't just say, hey, I loved your recent episode. Say, I loved your recent episode with AJ. And then go deeper. I loved your recent episode with AJ where he spoke about how to get lucky. And it really reminded me of, and then bring it back to yourself and give an example, like give a really thoughtful message. And always ask if that was you and you were, the shoes were reversed, would you respond to that own message, right? You want them to pause and say, wow, what an incredible message. Now I feel guilty not responding. Maybe they don't have time, which is fine. Say, hey, let's chat next month. I'm too busy this month, which is fine. But at least you'll get a response. And it takes more time and it takes more work. But again, nothing good in this life comes easy. If you want the best people and the busiest people to respond and give you time, you have to make time for them as well.
You have to. Yeah, I cannot agree more. I get so many, how are you today? I don't respond. I don't have the much time. But if they say, I took your course and I learned XYZ, or they're posting about that, I reach out myself and I will say, thank you so much. Because that, as you said, that takes time. Recently, I have a dad who just moved and dropped off his daughter at our university as a freshman who reached out. And I wrote back and said, listen, give her my number if she wants to have a cup of coffee. This is how the world works. I don't need anything from him. And I have had kids that have been freshmen, and I know that it's stressful. I have a lot of students that have homesickness that they get started with in college. So this is what is great about this platform that it can do. So I cannot agree with you more. Absolutely.
And I'll give you one more thing as well in that message. So in any time I'm doing an outreach message, especially with someone that I know gets inundated with emails, DMs, etc., I try to find what I call a cookie on their profile or in their content. So what I mean by a cookie is something that they want to see, but no one talks about. So everyone reaches out to me, a lot of creators looking for brand deals, a lot of brands looking for creators, a lot of just normal stuff, which again, all makes sense. It's the content that I focus on. But if you mention something outside of my normal content that you could find through listening to an old podcast or going super deep into the archives, I will be like, wow, this person really took the time to research me. So an example, on my about section in my LinkedIn profile, I have some fun facts, which is not even that far buried. But if you mention something that I said, I love to travel for surfing, I love to compete in ultra marathons, I love to do triathlons, etc. And then imagine if you reached out, and I know that Tatiana, you do triathlons, right? You're an amazing swimmer, and you relate to me on that level.
On that note,
you have my attention. Right? So I don't think enough people look for those things. Or even if an old job was, you were working at a ice cream store, and you can kind of mention those things that no one talks about because it was so long ago, or that it's on your weekend time. And I think those are a great way to get people's attention because they are not things that people will normally mention.
And people know that you've paid attention. It reminds me of Chip and Dan Heath in one of their books. I think it was the one related to change, wrote that there was a famous rock star artist that in the contract for the stage production would write that I want a bowl of M&Ms with all the brown ones removed.
Mhm.
And when he went to the concert stage, the lineup for the day before, whatever, he would not check anything else except the bowl of M&Ms. And if the brown M&Ms were not removed, he would know that the people that read the contract had not paid attention to the detail. And then, all hell would break loose and the quality assurance teams would come in. But it's the reverse of what you're saying. Put something in your profile that when people find, that they have been intentional, detailed, and I would say focused enough to want to make that connection.
And I don't know if anybody in the crowd right now listens to the show Hot Ones with Sean Evans, but he's a great interviewer because the two most common responses from the guests are either, how in the world did you find that? As in, like, he's talking to a famous musician, and 20 years ago, they used to, cook wings at Wingstop. And that was the question. Like, how do you find that? The second off is, what a great question. No one's asked that yet. Yes, so I think of that and almost think of your outreach as you're interviewing the person with one question, one ask, get them to smile and to respond. And that's what I think about outreach. And then the second thing, actually, going back to the original thing you said about asking for, you cut out. Can you hear me now? Sorry, my internet cut out for a second. Okay. So going to another topic that you mentioned before around intros. So I will always respond when someone that I know personally is introing me, right? So if you were to intro me to somebody else and I know you and I've met you before and we have a relationship, I will respond. I might not be able to have time for that person, but I will definitely respond. So whenever possible, intros are always helpful.
Sure.
But I think people go at it the wrong way. It shouldn't be a chore for me to intro you, right? If you say, hey, AJ, can you intro me to Shelby, right? And if I say, of course, what you literally should do is make it so effortless that all I have to do is copy your message, add Shelby's email, and then just click send. So write that draft for me. I don't need to do research on you, do research on Shelby, see what you want to talk about. Like, I cannot tell you how many times people say, hey, can you make an intro? I said, more than happy to, but just make it easy for me to help you is the biggest thing.
Send me your talking points. So absolutely true. Speaking of that kind of networking, Anastasia, I'm gonna put her on the spot here. My friend here, she wrote to me, and it was just one of those private messages on LinkedIn, and said, I'm doing a conference in Athens. Would you by any chance be available? It happened to be at the hotel across the street from where I was staying with my students in May. And any chance, and it's one of those goodwill things, Anastasia. It was such a pleasure to meet you and see all the good work that you're doing. And now she's one of the people that when I see she posts something, I'll be the first one to celebrate it because I want her to be successful as well. But she went out of her way to reach out to me and then said, I can't believe you responded. And I'm thinking, of course I responded, because when I want something and something to happen, I hope that people use that goodwill and sort of the positive karma, as we say. AJ, we've talked about full circle of when we met in New York. You at the time were working in a consulting company, and this is sort of the question that I told you that I would ask because I was wondering about it. And I saw you in those last 2 years, you'd been with them for a while, really work on building your brand and promoting yourself and really putting out content. How did that, and for all of our listeners and viewers now that are working for someone else, but also trying to build their brand, is there, and I recently saw an article that says companies want their employees to be creators because they are promoting the company's brand as well. But was it well received? Did you have to manage it in any different way? How did you navigate it?
So the first thing is I worked for, probably one of the biggest companies in the world in terms of employees, and it was a public company. So it had 700 and I want to say 20,000 employees. That is just, it's a small country, literally. And we were public, right? So my philosophy in personal branding was, how could I build my personal brand while also uplifting my company? But you
Yes.
could do that in ways where you don't mention the company. And I think ideally you don't mention the company, because anytime you mention them or tag them, then you could put yourself in risk of having HR getting upset or any legal implications. So obviously never mention anything confidential. Don't talk about any numbers. Don't talk about
Or
client name,
clients. Yes, of course.
anything. But let's say I'm in consulting, right? The best and easiest way to create content is to build in public of your own role. So most people think of build in public content as what I'm doing right now as a founder. I'm building Creator Match in public. But if you are a consultant, talk about the travel schedule, talk about tips on how you got your job, talk about tips on, you have a big meeting on Tuesday with a client. What do you have to do to prepare? How do you build a slide deck? I mean, everything that goes around your role. And that could be a marketing analyst, social media manager, a financial analyst, whatever it is,
Yeah.
without mentioning your company, without saying anything confidential, without tagging another competitor. That's a big no-no, is do not talk about a competitor.
Yeah.
And just know, especially if it's on LinkedIn, that your manager and your team and your client will likely see the content. So have that in mind every time you post to make sure that it's going to be okay. So as long as you do all those things, I think it's actually a value add, because if there's 10 analysts at your company, you're the only one with a strong brand and you're giving a ton of brand awareness to the company that you're at, and it's all positive things, then that's a good thing. And I remember even at my company, people would call me the LinkedIn guy, and they know that I create content. Oh, I loved your recent post, I love your podcast, whatever it is. But I just made sure to not mention the company, to not mention a competitor, and to not mention anything confidential. And I think all those things will set yourself up for success. And you can always have a chat with your manager and say, hey, Tatiana, let's say you're my manager. I am building my personal brand, and I've been doing it even before I started here. And I post daily on LinkedIn. Is it cool if I continue to post? Obviously, we'll make sure to not do any of the things that I just mentioned, but I just want to check with you if that's okay. I schedule the post the night of or the weekend of, so I'm not on LinkedIn during the day, whatever it is. And I think as long as you're open and transparent, I think people will be very receptive versus trying to hide something that can get you in trouble.
And anymore, this is how we live now. It was not 10 or 15 years ago, but I cannot imagine any companies that are hiring young professionals expecting them not to have their own online brand or a voice if they choose to do so. And as you said, if they choose to schedule posts early enough or do something on the weekends or talk about their work outside of work hours, that's so important. I can't imagine we can ignore that. If you have joined us, I'd like to know, for all of you, do you have any questions as they relate to self-promotion savviness? And also don't forget the hashtag stronger, so we put you in the running for giving you a tumbler. So I want to know, or I kind of want to wait. Anastasia, my friend, who I responded to her message, is saying, always, you truly made me feel special because I responded. You talked a little bit about responding to initial content. Always give a try, everyone. You never know. And she has built a whole conference for women in the financial industry by asking each and every one, all the speakers that she had speaking and everyone else that was involved, all were based on her asking. So I give you the hats off for doing that as well. We have Oscar from Chile, and he's saying thank you so much. I'm curious, since you're telling us where you're coming in from, if the very extroverted, very transparent, very, I would say, all information out there, LinkedIn activity that creators have, does that also translate from what you see, AJ, in other cultures? Is it seen as too extroverted or too extreme to be promoting yourself as much, or do you see it being the same across the board?
I think today in 2024, the power and the opportunities will always go to the people that are most visible versus the people that are just the best in terms of their ability, right? So visibility over ability in 2024. That's just the world we live in with so much content, right? And if you could be more visible, it's just, I think, better in general, a lot, especially for your personal brand. But within that, you don't have to only share posts when you say, I'm happy to announce a win. I think the content on LinkedIn is also shifting, where a lot of younger voices are joining the platform, where they share a lot of their failures, their losses, their rejections, and it makes it for a better story. I mean, I remember when I got rejected literally 19 times from TED Talk and got the win, it made the win way, way better because I mentioned the 19 rejections and I was very public about my goal. And because I was public about what I wanted to do, I was able to network and find a mentor, shout out Carissa, who helped me navigate how TED Talks even work and how the process works and how to refine your talk that you submit. And then that whole process led up to the victory post, the happy to announce post. But it was 19 different rejections to get me to that point. So for anybody listening, you're afraid to boast about your accomplishments, share some things that are failures, that are losses. It's not a bad thing. And actually, fun fact, those posts do super well because people love to engage with posts that aren't the typical, I'm happy to announce that I got a company, right?
It would have been fun for you to do a series, although pretty stressful, of sort of leading up to the actual talk, practicing and scratching your head and redoing and rewriting and repracticing and all of that.
And it makes it for a better story. I mean, I got rejected last year. I got to the final round to speak at South by Southwest and then got rejected in the 11th hour. And then I literally said, it's my goal to speak next year. And I'm a patient person. And now we're in the running again, and fingers crossed that we get it. And hopefully we do get it. And it's going to make it for a great story. Remember, literally 365 days ago when I posted about this rejection, now I'm happy to announce that we landed it. And here is the talk. And
you can't wait. Our friend Kim Kaup, who also is in Austin, has also been rejected by South by Southwest. So they hold high standards, and that's a great idea to keep trying. Our friend Avdan Dill, I hope I said it right, said, what's the right balance between self-promotion and authenticity? How can you showcase your strengths and accomplishments without coming across as being too boastful or inauthentic? And I would say this is exactly what we've been talking about, because if you're authentic, you are going to talk about struggles and failures and not always say, I'd like to announce and I'd like to announce. I don't think that's the best strategy. What do you think, AJ?
I think there's a happy medium, a hybrid between the two. You know, a lot of the content does not have to be so far to this is a win and so far to this is a loss, but just a lot of cross between the two. So sharing, you know, last week I was in Vegas for the Adobe Summit, and here are the 3 takeaways that I learned, or here is whatever you're just sharing more about, whatever you want to talk about. So I think finding the balance that works for you is the most important thing. You know, if I try not to post too many winning type posts in the same week, because I always feel like this is not true. And, you know, I could save 10 podcast interviews that went live in the same week and have 10 straight posts, but it feels like the perception is that I only get invited to go on these podcasts. But then there's a lot of things to also share to wrap around them. So I think whatever works best for you is what you should do, and whatever you feel comfortable with. I think you will get hate. I think anytime you put yourself out there, you get negative comments. I mean, they're not as bad on LinkedIn, but on any social media, you get hate. But the bigger you get, the more people want to see you fall, and the longer you will fall. So I think a great quote that I tell myself is, no hater will ever be doing better than you, because if I'm doing better, why would I try to tear you down? So anytime that you start to get some negative comments, as long as you think that you're in the right direction, I think that means you're doing a good thing and you're creating noise and creating buzz, because people want to see other people fail, and they don't like to see you taking opportunities that they wanted, but they didn't have the courage and the confidence to go out and do them.
I agree.
So my philosophy on it.
And they'll say, oh, it's too much, or it's that again, like I told you that I get. But I do believe if you stay true, you know, to our friend, I could say, think of a topic or a hobby that you have and say, I like doing this, and show a picture. This is how this helps me learn, or this is how the light relates to the work that I do. Or you can be the one to connect the dots and help people either understand you a little better or be more insightful without, as AJ said, constantly showcasing yourself. I agree with that. I try to do that as well, of not adding it too much or saving things for later. We're getting to about a couple of minutes before we say goodbye, and I want to make sure you have your hashtag stronger to note that you've turned in, so we put it into the raffle. AJ, any parting words for savviness of self-promotion? In the Stronger newsletter, I try to cover things we can control and are happening behind the scenes without the face-to-face of going into a conference meeting room or into a networking event and introducing yourself. But is there any other advice you would give others on being strategic and savvy, as I would say, with self-promotion?
So I'll give two final parting words and pieces of advice. So I think the first one is, I always say there's no bad person to network with, but there are definitely better people to network with. So if I network with someone in the finance world, right? They could be an amazing person, maybe a CEO of a financial XYZ company, and that's awesome. But if that's nowhere in the realm of where I'm trying to go, and I only have so much time in my day to meet people and network, there's definitely better uses of that time to meet other people. So be really mindful and thoughtful and strategic with your networking, and spend time in the circles and the communities that you want to develop those relationships and grow. Like if I want to meet all these LinkedIn Learning instructors, I should go to that New York event that we talked about in the beginning and meet everybody, right? If I want to meet creators, go to creator conferences and brand conferences. So just be thoughtful and mindful. Yes, there, you never know who you might meet, and maybe that person in finance ends up becoming a close friend or a client, whatever it may be. Maybe I switch careers, but be really thoughtful and mindful of networking. The second thing is set yourself up for success with processes and tools. You know, you meet a lot of people over the years in your career. I created something I call my networking Bible, where it's just a spreadsheet of all the people that I've met, especially when I was job searching, when I was, things, when I had a podcast, just document everything. Another great example is a tool that we're building at Creator Match. So it's a tool for people on LinkedIn to see all of the analytics, all of the top performing posts of every creator on LinkedIn, because a big point that we've seen with brands and creators is the lack of infrastructure, the lack of tools to power this creator economy. So even if you are a massive creator with 1 million followers, or not even a creator, but an aspiring creator, and just want to see what's working for other people. So going back to that question about what's a good balance between the success content and the failure content, and you know that Tatiana is that creator that you want to emulate, you can go to this tool that's going to be completely 100% free and see her top performing posts. And you can literally type in keywords like success or failure, filter out by video content from high to low likes, and see everything. So that's currently in beta, and anybody who's listening, who's watching, if you go to our website, creatormatch.com, and go to our newsletter and just sign up, we'll be opening up a private beta for our newsletter subscribers in the next few weeks as well.
That's fantastic, because you may have someone that has 600 followers and they want to aspire to be to 1,000, and they see what are the people that have that level of followers or beyond, because you don't want to be going after the 100,000. That seems too big, but you can kind of match. And if it's free, that's a wonderful tool for people to be able to build their brand if that's what they wish to do.
You no longer need to reinvent the wheel in anything. It's just seeing what works for somebody else and then tailoring that and customizing that to Tatiana or to John in your personal life and career.
Sure. Wonderful. What a great way to close. And that's a tool that you're giving us that our listeners can take away. I think, Shelby, we're ready to spin the wheel for our Stronger Tumbler. So I'm going to be the demonstrator, and we send you this anywhere where you are around the world. I always have committed to do that. Our Jody Weeks, really wonderful. We were going to be in touch. Congratulations. So we will put this in the mail to you. So we'll reach out and we will send you one of these if you send us your address. AJ, fantastic content. Let's stay on so we get to chat a little bit before you go if you have the time. But thank you for all of you for showing up from all parts of the world and in the US. We'll see you again in September. And we'll be talking a little bit about generational differences in communication. Excited for the guests we have then as well. AJ, thank you. Good luck with all your travel. Big fans of Creator Match right here. Take good care. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.